stand here, in the center of the ancient world, 2,000 years ago, and what you would see would stop you cold. Not ruins, not rubble, not the pale, broken marble you find in museums. What you would see is color, noise, life. A city of 1 million people, pulsing, roaring, sprawling across 7 hills above a muddy brown river. The most powerful city the world had ever produced.
This is Rome. Not the Rome of textbooks. Not the Rome of Hollywood. The real Rome. At the absolute height of its power, around 100 AD, under the reign of Emperor Trajan. A city so vast, so complex, so overwhelming in its scale, that visitors from across the empire would arrive at its gates and simply stand there, speechless. Writers at the time struggled to find words for it. One called it the city that swallowed the world. Another said walking through its streets felt like being inside a living, breathing machine, one that never stopped, never slept, never slowed down. Today, we reconstruct it, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. We walk through the gates, cross the forum, climb the hills, and descend into the valleys where 1 million lives were being lived simultaneously, in a city that would not be matched in size or complexity for over 1,000 years.
You approach Rome from the south, along the Appian Way, the oldest and most famous road in the ancient world. For miles before you reach the city, the road is lined with tombs. Wealthy Romans were buried outside the city walls, and their monuments stretch as far as the eye can see. Marble mausoleums, stone columns, carved epitaphs fading in the sun. It is an avenue of the dead leading into a city of the living. Then the walls appear. The Servian wall, ancient even by Roman standards, rises before you, built from massive blocks of volcanic tufa stone, stretching nearly 11 miles around the city's perimeter. The gates are enormous. Carts, animals, merchants, soldiers, slaves, and travelers from every corner of the known world push through them in a constant grinding flow of humanity. And then you are inside.
The first thing that hits you is the sound. Rome is deafeningly loud. There are no cars, no engines, and yet the noise is overwhelming. Iron wheels of carts grinding on stone streets, vendors shouting from every corner, hammers striking metal in the workshops lining every alley, animals, cattle, pigs, goats, being driven through the streets toward the markets, children, arguments, music from open windows, the low, constant roar of 1 million human beings living on top of each other. The second thing is the smell. Rome is not clean. The streets are narrow, the population is dense, and while the city has an extraordinary sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima, the reality of daily life is raw and immediate. The scent of baking bread from the hundreds of bakeries, fish sauce, garum, the Romans' favorite condiment, fermented and pungent, sold from giant clay jars on street corners. Animals, sweat, incense burning from a dozen temple doorways. This is not a postcard. This is a city.
Most Romans do not live in grand villas. They live in Insulae, towering apartment buildings that crowd the city's neighborhoods, some rising 6, 7, even 8 stories into the sky. The ground floors house shops and taverns. Above them, families crowd into small, dark rooms with no running water and no kitchens. Cooking is done on small braziers, a constant fire hazard in a city largely built of wood and plaster. The streets between these buildings are narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass, and they twist and turn without pattern or logic. Getting lost in ancient Rome is easy. Finding your way requires local knowledge, landmarks, the smell of a particular market, the sound of a particular fountain. And there are fountains everywhere, over 1,000 public fountains fed by Rome's 11 aqueducts, delivering fresh water from mountains miles away. One of the greatest engineering achievements in human history, so reliable that Romans rarely thought about it at all.
At the heart of the city lies the Forum Romanum, the civic, religious, and political center of the entire Roman world. Step into it, and the scale is staggering. Towering temples line its edges: the Temple of Saturn, the Temple of Vesta, the Temple of Castor and Pollux, their columns gleaming white and gold in the Mediterranean sun, their pediments painted in vivid red, blue, and yellow. Nothing here is the pale white of modern imagination. Everything is color. The Forum is alive with people, lawyers arguing cases in the open air, merchants conducting business on the steps of temples, politicians moving through crowds of clients and supplicants, philosophers debating under shaded colonnades, soldiers in polished armor, priests in white robes, slaves carrying messages across the marble paving stones. Above it all, on the Palatine Hill, rises the Imperial Palace, a complex so vast it has given the word palace to every language on earth. To the east of the Forum, the Colosseum rises against the sky, a structure so perfectly engineered that it could fill with 50,000 people and empty again in minutes. On the days the games are held, the city changes its rhythm entirely. Shops close early. The streets around the arena fill hours before the gates open. The roar of the crowd inside is audible from across the city, a sound like distant thunder, rising and falling with the action on the sand below. The Romans did not see the games as we see them. To them, the arena was a place where the values of Roman civilization were displayed in their purest form: courage, strength, the acceptance of fate. It was theater, it was religion, it was politics. And for the emperor watching from his box above the sand, it was power made visible.
Rome, at its peak, was not a perfect place. It was built on slavery, on conquest, on the brutal subjugation of dozens of peoples across 3 continents. Its wealth was extracted from the edges of a world it held by force. And yet, what it built, what it created, what it imagined, echoes in every city on earth today, in the roads beneath our feet, in the laws that govern us, in the very language we use to describe power, justice, and civilization.